Time is the only resource that cannot be renewed. It is the great equalizer. The beggar and the billionaire both have exactly 24 hours in a day. We have spent thousands of years trying to measure it, to control it, to capture it in bottles, sundials, and gears. But in the modern world, the measurement of time has become trivial. It is free. It is everywhere. It glows from our microwave ovens. It sits in the corner of our laptop screens, and it rests in our pockets, synced to atomic clocks with military precision. If the utility of knowing the time is now worthless, a commodity available to everyone for zero cost, then why do we still obsess over the machines that measure it? Why does a civilization that lives in the digital cloud still fantasize about analog gears? The answer lies in a fundamental truth about human nature. We do not buy things for what they do. We buy them for what they say. And in the language of the modern world, nothing speaks louder than silence.
Consider the paradox of the wristwatch. On the left, you have a digital device. It is accurate to within a fraction of a second per year. It has an alarm, a stopwatch, perhaps even a calculator. It costs $10. It is a triumph of modern engineering and utility. On the right, you have a mechanical assembly of springs and gears. It is heavy, it requires service. If you drop it, it breaks. If you leave it on a dresser for 3 days, it dies. And, ironically, it is less accurate than the cheap plastic tool. It might lose 2 or 3 seconds a day. Yet, the device on the right costs $10,000, or $50,000, or $500,000. Logically, this makes no sense. Economically, it is irrational. But the luxury market is not built on logic. It is built on the inefficiency of art. We value the mechanical watch precisely because it is difficult to make. We value it because it is obsolete. In a world of disposable technology, where an iPhone is outdated in 2 years, the mechanical watch offers a seductive promise: permanence.
This promise of permanence transforms a simple object into a totem of power. When a man climbs the social hierarchy, he seeks symbols to announce his arrival. He buys the suit, he leases the car, he acquires the real estate. But the watch is different. The watch is intimate. It sits on the pulse. It is the only piece of jewelry a man can wear that is universally accepted in the boardroom, on the golf course, and at the state dinner. Rolex understood this better than anyone. They realized that they were not selling a device to tell you when your meeting starts. They were selling a medal, a badge of rank. When you wear the crown, you are signaling to the world, and perhaps more importantly, to yourself, that you have survived the climb, that you belong on this balcony, that you have mastered your time, rather than being enslaved by it.
In the pantheon of horology, there are brands that are technically superior. Patek Philippe makes more complex movements. Vacheron Constantin has a longer continuous history. Audemars Piguet finishes their cases with more hand-polished intricacy. To the true connoisseur, Rolex is essentially a mass-produced tractor, a robust industrial machine compared to the delicate poetry of the holy trinity of watchmaking. And yet, Rolex reigns supreme. It is the king. It commands a market share larger than its next 5 competitors combined. It is the only watch brand that functions as a global currency. You can land in Tokyo, New York, or Cape Town, walk into a dealer, and liquidate a Rolex Submariner for cash within minutes. No other brand has achieved this. They have bypassed the niche world of enthusiasts and conquered the global psyche. They have become the default definition of luxury.
This dominance has led to a bizarre modern phenomenon: the empty window. Walk into a Rolex boutique today in London, Dubai, or Shanghai, and you will see something that defies the basic laws of retail. The display cases are empty. The staff has nothing to sell you. You cannot simply walk in and exchange money for goods. This is the ultimate flex of the monopoly power. In a capitalist society designed to maximize consumption, Rolex has weaponized no. They have turned the customer into the suitor. You must woo the dealer. You must build a relationship. You must wait. By denying instant gratification to the world's wealthiest people, they have created a psychological hunger that no amount of advertising could ever achieve. But to understand how a mass-produced tool became a ghost, we have to go back to the beginning, before the hype, before the scarcity, to a time when the wristwatch was a joke. The year is 1905. London is the capital of the world, the heart of an empire on which the sun never sets. But timekeeping is stuck in the Victorian era. Men, serious men, bankers, officers, gentlemen, carry pocket watches. These are heavy, gold-plated turnips tethered to waistcoats. They are ceremonial. To check the time, one must stop what they are doing, unbutton a jacket, retrieve the device, open the lid, read the dial, and return it. It is a deliberate, slow ritual. The idea of wearing a watch on the wrist is considered laughable. It is seen as feminine, a wristlet worn only by society ladies as a bracelet with a tiny clock face. For a man to wear one would be seen as unmasculine, foolish, and practically useless. Wristwatches of this era are fragile, prone to breaking, and notoriously inaccurate because the movements are too small to regulate. Into this rigid world steps Hans Wilsdorf. He is an outsider, a German orphan working in London, just 24 years old. He has no family legacy in watchmaking. He is not a Swiss craftsman born at a workbench. He is a businessman, a distributor. But unlike the Swiss traditionalists who are obsessed with tradition, Wilsdorf is obsessed with the future. He looks at the pocket watch and sees a relic. He looks at the changing world, the speed of industry, the rise of the automobile, the mechanization of war, and he realizes that the future belongs to the wrist. He bets his entire life on a concept that everyone else mocks. He believes that if he can make a wristwatch that is masculine, accurate, and robust, he can change the way the human species relates to time. His intuition is driven by the new breed of men emerging in the 20th century, the aviator, the driver, the soldier. Consider the pilot in an open cockpit fighting crosswinds at 5,000 feet. He cannot let go of the control stick to fumble for a pocket watch inside a flight jacket. He needs to glance at his wrist and know instantly how much fuel he has left. Wilsdorf realizes that the watch needs to migrate from the safety of the pocket to the danger of the wrist. It needs to become a tool. But to sell this tool to a global market, he faces a branding problem. The companies of the time are named after their founders, Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin. They are long, clumsy names, difficult to pronounce for anyone who doesn't speak French. Wilsdorf needs a brand that sounds like a modern machine. He begins to play with letters. He wants a name that is short, a maximum of 5 letters. It must look balanced on a watch dial. It must be pronounceable in every language, English, French, German, Italian, without changing its sound. It must possess a certain onomatopoeia, sounding like the winding of a watch or the click of a gear. He combines hundreds of letters in thousands of ways. Nothing sticks. Until one morning, while riding on the upper deck of a horse-drawn omnibus in London, he claims a genie whispered a single word into his ear: Rolex. It means nothing. It has no etymology. It is an empty vessel, a made-up word. But it sounds expensive. It sounds precise. And just like that, the most powerful brand name in history is born out of thin air. But a name is not enough. The wristwatch faces a deadly enemy, the environment. A pocket watch is safe, swaddled in cloth, protected by a metal lid. A wristwatch is exposed. It lives in the elements. It faces rain, sweat, humidity, and the most insidious killer of all, dust. If even a microscopic particle of dust enters the movement, it clogs the oils and stops the gears. If moisture gets in, the movement rusts overnight.
For the wristwatch to succeed, it has to be more than accurate. It has to be sealed. Wilsdorf becomes obsessed with hermetic sealing. He doesn't just want to make a watch, he wants to build a vault. In 1926, the breakthrough arrives. Rolex purchases a patent for a screw-down crown system, a mechanism that seals the winding knob against the case like a submarine hatch. Wilsdorf combines this with a screw-down caseback and a fitted bezel. He calls it the oyster. The name is perfect. Like the mollusk, it is tough and clamped shut on the outside, protecting the precious pearl on the inside. It is the world's first waterproof, dustproof watch. But the public is skeptical. Snake oil salesmen have been claiming water-resistant watches for years, only for them to fog up in a light drizzle. Wilsdorf knows he cannot just tell people it works, he has to show them. Opportunity strikes in the form of a young British secretary named Mercedes Gleitze. She is preparing to become the first British woman to swim the English Channel. It is a feat of immense endurance, tens of thousands of strokes through freezing, turbulent, salt-heavy water. Wilsdorf approaches her. He doesn't offer her money, he offers her a place in history. He gives her a gold Rolex oyster and asks her to wear it, not on her wrist, but around her neck, dragging it through the water for hours. It is the ultimate gamble. If the watch leaks, the brand is dead. If it survives, the legend begins.
For over 10 hours, Mercedes battles the channel. The water is frigid, the salt is corrosive. Every stroke slams the watch against the surface tension of the water. Inside the case, the tiny gears continue to oscillate. The screw-down crown holds the line against the Atlantic Ocean. It is a grueling physical ordeal, but also a mechanical trial by fire. This is not a laboratory test. This is the real world, hostile and unforgiving. When she's finally pulled from the water, half frozen and exhausted, the first thing the reporters check is not her pulse, but the watch. It is ticking perfectly. It has kept precise time throughout the entire ordeal. Inside the crystal, there is no fog, no moisture. Wilsdorf wastes no time. He buys the entire front page of the Daily Mail, a massive expense for a small company, and proclaims the Rolex Oyster as the wonder watch that defies the elements. He establishes a marketing blueprint that Rolex still uses a century later, the testimony. Don't use models, use achievers. Put the watch in impossible situations and let it survive. The Channel swim was just the beginning. Wilsdorf turns the planet into his testing lab. In 1953, he equips Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay for their assault on Mount Everest. The watches are subjected to extreme altitude, brutal shocks, and freezing temperatures. When they reach the summit, the highest point on Earth, the Rolex Oyster professionals are there with them. They return with data, not just anecdotes. Wilsdorf uses this feedback to refine the watch, creating the Explorer model. He isn't selling jewelry, he is selling equipment for the pioneers of the human race. Having conquered the surface and the summit, Rolex looks down. In 1960, they attach a prototype, the Deep Sea Special, to the outside of the Trieste bathyscape. Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh pilot the vessel to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the deepest point in the ocean. 7 miles down, the pressure is crushing, over 1,000 atmospheres. A normal submarine would crumple like a soda can. The watch survives. When the Trieste resurfaces, Wilsdorf sends a telegram. Happy to announce your Rolex works as well at 11,000 meters as it does on the surface. The message is clear. Rolex is indestructible. But in the 1970s, the Swiss watch industry faces an existential threat. The Japanese invent the Quartz movement.
Because Hans Wilsdorf had no children. When his wife died in 1944, he was left with an empire and no heir. He did not want his life's work to be sold off, chopped up, or diluted by corporate raiders. So he created the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation. He transferred 100% of his ownership shares into this trust. This means that Rolex is technically a non-profit entity. It is a charitable trust. They cannot be bought, they cannot be sold. They do not have to chase short-term profits. This structure allows them to play a game that no one else can play, the long game. They can plan in decades. If the economy crashes, they don't panic. If a trend fades, they don't care. They just keep making the same watch, refining it by millimeters, year after year, decade after decade. When the Apple Watch launched, the industry panicked again. This is the second quartz crisis, they said. The mechanical watch is dead. Rolex did nothing. They didn't release a hybrid, they didn't add a Bluetooth chip. They understood that the person buying an Apple Watch wants information, but the person buying a Rolex wants separation. Separation from the notifications, the emails, the noise. A Rolex does one thing. It ticks. And in a noisy world, that simplicity is the ultimate luxury. This unique structure also allows them to control supply with an iron fist. Rumors swirl that Rolex creates artificial scarcity, holding back watches in warehouses to drive up hype. The reality is more complex. Demand has simply exploded beyond any manufacturing capacity. And because they are a foundation, they refuse to rush production. They would rather have empty shelves than lower their quality standards.